was the final attempt to reconcile the colonists and the British government. There was a divide between the colonists who wanted to stay loyal to the throne and those who wanted to separate themselves and no longer be under Parliament's rule, so they drafted the petition. This was after creating an army for themselves in order to be prepared for anything that may be coming their way. They were aware that Britain would not be happy with the creation of a colonial army and thus added the following into their petition. Your Majesty's ministers, preserving in their measures and proceeding to open hostilities for enforcing them, have compelled us to arm in our own defense, and have engaged us in a controversy so peculiarly abhorrent to the affections of your still faithful colonists, that when we consider whom we must oppose in this contest, and if it continues, what may be the consequences, our own particular misfortunes are accounted by us as only part of our distress. They wanted to be absolutely clear that it was Parliament they were opposing, not the king, as they hoped that he wasn't supporting the Parliament, but instead that they were working largely without the knowledge of the king. They hoped that this would lead to the king ending the new taxes and laws on them and separating them from the Parliament. The way the petition was written has some key issues that make it clear the colonists themselves were divided while writing it. For example, they say they don't want to rebel, however, they will continue to fight against the British rule. The Olive Branch petition appealed directly to the king and expressed hope for reconciliation between the colonies and Great Britain. They expressed their loyalty to the crown and asserted their rights as British citizens. The petition explains that the colonists, who had recently won the French and Indian War, felt like the government didn't thank them for their support and participation, and instead enacted new laws and taxes that seemed more like a punishment. They were very clear to state that despite their complaints, they were still very loyal to the government. The petition itself says, "We solemnly assure your Majesty that we not only most ardently desire the former harmony between her and these colonies may be restored, but that a concord may be established between them upon so firm a basis as to perpetuate its blessings uninterrupted by any future dissensions to succeeding generations in both countries. Your Majesty will find your faithful subjects on this continent ready and willing at all times, as they ever have been with their lives and fortunes, to assert and maintain the rights and interests of your Majesty and of our mother country." They mainly appealed to the king to repeal the unjust taxes waged upon them, saying, "We therefore beseech your Majesty that your royal authority and influence may be graciously interposed to procure us relief from our afflicting fears and jealousies occasioned by the system before mentioned, and to settle peace through every part of your dominions, and that in the meantime measures may be taken for preventing the further destruction of the lives of your Majesty's subjects, and that such statutes as more immediately distress any of your Majesty's colonies be repealed." The Olive Branch petition claimed to want nothing more than for the colonists to have the rights of normal British citizens and to have justice where needed. However, this was not the outcome that occurred.
So originally Thomas Jefferson wrote the petition, but then later John Dickinson helped revise it and made it a little more toned down so that maybe the king would approve it more and side with them, but that wasn't even the case since he didn't even want to read it. The king refused to read this petition, not even looked at it. And I think it's because, obviously, like, why would you side with someone who kept going against you and against your taxes and against your acts? And it was just too much conflict going on that he didn't even want to side with them anymore. Like, he didn't want anything to do with these colonists. He wanted to be in control of them, but he didn't want anything to do with them. The Olive Branch petition was the final attempt to maybe just stop a giant conflict in the war. Obviously, it wasn't really a good time to let this petition out since there was already wars beforehand and conflicts that have been loading up over the past couple years. And so it was their final attempt by most of the loyalists and the colonists to maybe tie back with England in a sense. And they just wanted to avoid a full-blown war conflict in general, but obviously they were on the path to one. The petition didn't have many big effects, although it did show that the colonists still did not mind being a part of England for most part. Half the colonists did want to become independent from them, but the petition really just showed that they should separate and continue in their own path while England might fight them. Either way, they'll still stay strong and keep going with the revolution.